Hello students, we are doing 4-10. We're going to estimate products in this lesson. Go ahead and turn to page 149 in your fact sheet and let's go over some of these together. Whenever you're being asked to estimate, that's the same as rounding, okay? So let's review the rules for rounding. Round to the nearest 10 is the first problem. So what you should do is whatever it's asking you to do, you underline what it's asking. 10, okay? You should underline the number in the tens place, which happens to be 2. Then I like to draw an arrow to the right, the number on the right, because the number on the right is the boss of the underlined number, and the boss tells you what to do. So 8 happens to be, when I look at these numbers, 8 is in the round up category. Remember, 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5. If the boss happens to be 9, 8, 7, 6, or 5, then it tells the underlying number to go up, round up, bump up, right? Now, if the boss happens to be a 4, 3, 2, or 1, it's going to tell the underlying number to stay the same. This is an 8, so it's telling 2, you're going to bump up. So the 2 becomes a 3, and everything after the underlined number becomes a 0. You can write those zeros. You don't have to write them after the decimal, but you can. And when I think about this, the nearest 10, well, the two tens in between 928 is 920 and 930. And 28 is much closer to 30 than it is to 20. So it makes sense that it rounded to 930. Let's take a look at this. This was the tens place. Now this is saying the hundreds place. So I'm going to underline the number that it tells me, round to the nearest 100, okay? The 100 is the 9, and the number to the right is the boss. So I always draw a number, an arrow to the boss. This boss says stay the same. So it tells 9, you don't get to bump, you stay the same. So you're in 9. Now everything after the underline becomes a 0. So you got a 0 and a 0, and again, I don't have to put the decimal in the zeros, but I can, okay? It doesn't change the number. And I'm thinking about 100. What two hundreds is 928 between? It's between 900 and 1,000. And 928 is much closer to 900 than it is to 1,000, so it makes sense that it rounded to 900. Now, I underline the THs here because this says round to the nearest 10th, and that TH, both of these THs mean that you're in the decimals, okay? So the 10th place is this 5, and the same rules apply even though it's a decimal. I draw an arrow to the number on the right, and the number on the right tells that number what to do. It's a 6. So 6 tells the 5, you get to round up. So all these numbers don't change, and now that 5 becomes a 6, it rounds up, and everything after the underlying number becomes a 0. Okay, in decimals, again, you don't have to write them, but we can. Now, when I think of this, 928 and 561 tenths, the 2 tenths that this is in between is 50 and 60, right? 50 hundredths and 60 hundredths. So 56 is going to be closer to 60, which is why that rounded to 6 tenths or 600 hundredths, okay, or thousandths. This one is the hundredths place. I'm going to underline the hundredths place, which happens to be a 6. And the 1 is in charge. The 1 is the boss. 1 is over here and stay the same. So 1 tells 6, you stay the same. So these numbers don't change. I now look at my underlined number. The boss is telling it, 1 is telling it to stay the same, so 6 will stay the same. Everything after that becomes a 0. And when I think about this 61 or this 561, when I'm thinking about hundredths, well, the 2 hundredths that this would be between would be 560 and 570. And 61 is closer to 60 than it is to 70. So it makes sense that that rounds to 560 thousandths. Okay. Go ahead and do a couple of problems on the next 2 pages and see if you can apply this rule to it.